I am the physics tutor, Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi Ramakrishnan. Today, I'm going to cover the chapter Moving Charges and Magnetism. The weightage of this particular chapter is 2%. So you can expect 1 to 2 questions from this lesson. So before that, before going into the neat revision notes and the tests, let me quickly explain how to access our Clay6 page. So go to the clay6.com website. This is our home page. Go to the practice session. You can select the package here, Eat Premium. There you can see the revision notes. Click on that. Revision notes is nothing but all the important formulae for all the 3 subjects, physics, chemistry, and biology, and the important formulae and concepts. Everything has been summarized. It's made easier for you. So if you go through the revision notes, page by page, line by line, it is enough for you to crack the NEET exams very well. So we have done chapter wise, see, of physics, chemistry, and biology, right from the first chapter to the last chapter. So it is now going to be pretty easy for you if you make sure of all the concepts which you have done in the revision notes and then take the tests. So quickly let us go through the important concepts related to moving charges and magnetism. All right. Biot-Savart law and magnetic field due to current through the straight conductor. This is a very important law in moving charges and magnetism. So according to this law, magnetic field induction dB at a point due to current element is dB is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi, which is a constant, into I dl sine theta by r square, where I stands for current, dl is the small element, length of the element, and sine theta is going to be the angle made with the electric field, and r squared is now going to be the distance from the point, distance at a point, so where the object is now going to be placed, where the charge is now going to be placed. So that distance is now measured as r. Magnetic field induction at a point due to linear conductor carrying current I is given by V is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi a into sine theta 1 or sine phi 1 plus sine phi 2, where a is now going to be the radius, because we are now going to consider this linear conductor as a circle. So pi a, so it is now going to be the 2 pi a, which is now going to be the circular loop. So here r is now going to be the distance of that circular, or the radius of the circular loop. In case of infinite long conductor, B is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi a into 2 times I, where I is the current. Motion of charge particle in electric field and magnetic field. This is what we are going to see here, because here the charges are now going to undergo force, both the forces, that is forces due to magnetic field and the electric field. So we are going to see how this particle, this charge particle, is now going to react due to the electric field and the magnetic field. First, let us see the force on a charge particle of charge of an electric field of intensity E, which is given by F vector is equal to Q times E vector. Q times E vector. Second is the magnetic field. What is the force on the experienced by the charge particle when it is kept in the magnetic field? Suppose the magnetic field is now given by intensity of the magnetic field is given by V vector. Suppose the force is magnetic force is now going to be F vector is equal to Q times V vector cross V vector, or VQV sine theta, where Q is the charge, V is the velocity, V is the magnetic field intensity, and sine theta. Theta is now going to be the angle made by the charged particle along the magnetic field. So when the magnetic field is acting perpendicular to the direction of the motion of the charged particle, then you say, then theta is now going to be 90 degrees. In that case, it is now going to be QVB sine 90. You know, sine 90 is 1, so which is equal to mv squared by r, or r is equal to, so remember, look into both the formulae. F is equal to BQV sine 90, which is equal to mv squared. So if you need to calculate the force, you need to mention this formula or remember this formula. Or if they are asking you to find out R, then you can easily remember this formula. R is equal to mv by qb. Time period of rotation is given by t is equal to 2 pi r by b, where r is the radius and b is the velocity. So look into the data, read the sum properly, analyze, look into the data given, and then apply whichever formula is apt. Next is motion of a charged particle both in electric and magnetic field, and then the cyclotron. Both we are going to see this. Motion of charged particle both in electric and magnetic field is given by F is equal to, F vector is equal to Q E vector plus Q into V vector cross B vector. So you can see that it is now going to, the force is now going to be both the addition of both the electric field and the magnetic field. The force due to the electric field and the magnetic field. So Q E vector plus Q times V cross B. Next, cyclotron, you know, it is used to accelerate particles at a very high speed. So the frequency is given by mu is equal to 1 by t, which is equal to qb by 2 pi m. You know, the path traced by the particle in a cyclotron is circular. So that is why we have taken it as 2 pi m, where m stands for the mass, d is the magnetic field intensity, and q is the charge. 1 by t is going to be the t is the time period. So mu is going to be the frequency. So if you are asked to calculate the frequency of the cyclotron, you can directly use this formula QB by 2 pi m. Next is maximum kinetic energy of accelerated charged particle is given by Emax. So whatever kinetic energy or energy obtained, the accelerated particle is now going to obtain maximum kinetic energy. So that is given by Emax is equal to V squared Q squared R squared by 2m. Force between two parallel straight conductors carrying current. Here we are going to see what is when two parallel conductors, when they are now going to be along the same, when the current is now flowing along the same direction or in the opposite direction. We are going to see both the conditions here. Force per unit length on each of the two long parallel conductors carrying currents is given by I1 and I2 when they are placed at a distance r apart is given by F is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi into 2 I1 I2 by R, where I1 and I2 are the currents in the two long parallel conductors, and R is the distance between them. Force on smaller conductors of length L carrying current I1 held parallel to infinite long linear conductor carrying current I2 placed at a distance R apart, that is given by, here we are, remember we are look into this carefully. You can see that we are taking the length into consideration. When it is a small conductor, we are taking the length into consideration. So that gives you mu 0 by 4 pi into 2 I1 I2 L by 2. Remember this. Okay. And then L by R, children, mu 0 by 4 pi 2 I1 I2 L by R. Force on long linear conductor carrying current I1 placed parallel to a small conductor of length I carrying current I2 is given by F dash is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi into 2 I1 I2 L by R. Torque. Torque on a current loop is given by tau is equal to M vector cross B vector, which is equal to, you know that whenever there is going to be a cross product, it is going to be the sine theta, which is going to play here. So it is MB sine alpha, which is equal to NIA B sine alpha, where N is the number of turns, I the current, A the area, B is the magnetic field intensity, and sine theta, theta is now going to be the angle made with the magnetic field. And then moving coil galvanometer. MCG is a very important thing which you'll have to know. This is a very important concept you'll have to know. It is now based on this concept of moving charges and magnetic field. So problems related to this can be expected. So I is equal to K by NBA theta. I is equal to K by NBA theta. You might be asked to calculate the current sensitivity or voltage sensitivity. So read the sum properly and analyze what is being asked, whether it is current sensitivity IS or voltage sensitivity VS. So if it is now going to be current sensitivity, IS is equal to theta by I, which is equal to NBA by K. If it is going to be voltage sensitivity VS, then it is theta by V, which is equal to theta by IR. Right? Theta by IR or N theta. So when we consider for one turn, it is now going to be just theta by IR. If it is now going to be N number of turns, you take it as N theta by IR. Conversion of galvanometer into ammeter, voltmeter. So this also might be a very important concept you have to know. Ig is equal to Nk, where Ig stands for the galvanometer current. So S is going to be the shunt resistance. S is equal to R Ig times G by I minus Ig, where G stands for the galvanometer reading, Ig is the current through the galvanometer, I is the current, and Ig is going to be the current through the galvanometer. R is the resistance. If R is the resistance, that is given by B. R is equal to V by Ig times G. So these are the formulae which you'll have to use, where you need to convert an ammeter into voltmeter or a voltmeter into how to convert a galvanometer into an ammeter or a voltmeter. So using this, you can now easily solve problems related to this. Yeah. Now coming to magnetic field due to a current through circular coil. In this case, magnetic field induction B at the center of the circular coil, I is which is carrying a current I, is given by B is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi 2 pi NL by R, where N stands for number of turns, L is the length of the circular coil, and R is now going to be the radius of the circular coil, radius at which this now going to be the particle is now going to be in the center, right? So where the particle is now going to act, so that is now going to give you the distance R. Magnetic field induction at a point on the axis of the circular coil of radius R carrying current I is B is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi 2 pi N I R squared divided by R squared plus X squared to the power of 3 by 2. R squared plus X squared to the power of 3 by 2. So X is now going to be the distance at which the particle is now going to be kept from the center. And magnetic field induction at the center of the arc of radius R subtending at an angle theta, then the current carrying current of I is given by B is equal to mu 0 by 4 pi I by R into theta. Suppose if this is not going to be small theta, then you can directly take it as theta. Ampere's circuital law. This is a closed loop, so that is given by B vector dot dl vectors. Remember, this is a dot product which is equal to mu 0 I. It's a closed integral. Magnetic field due to solenoid and toroid. Again, this is a very important concept, children. Magnetic field induction B at a point inside the long solenoid carrying current I is B is equal to mu 0 Ni, which is equal to mu 0. Now, this N can be written as N by N, where this capital N stands for the intensity, the turn intensity. You can call it as the number of turns. Turn intensity stands for capital N, and turn density, children. Turn density is given by capital N divided by L. L is now going to be the length of the whole conductor, and then I is the current. Magnetic field induction B at a point at one end on the axis of a long solenoid carrying current is given by I is equal to mu 0 Ni by 2, which is equal to mu 0 Ni by 2L. Magnetic field induction B at a point inside the, so that was for the solenoid. Now we are going to see a toroid. Toroid is nothing but a circular solenoid, that's it. So magnetic field induction B at a point inside the toroid carrying current I having n turns per unit length is given by B is equal to mu 0 Ni. Magnetic field intensity B at a point outside the toroid is 0. So these are the important concepts you'll have to know, and all the formulae, memorize all the formulae, make yourself thorough with all the concepts, and then later on we can go to the test now. So we have about 111 tests, chapter-wise tests for physics. We have chapter-wise tests for chemistry, biology as well, and NEET full tests also. So once you're thorough with all the concepts with physics, chemistry, and biology, you can take the NEET full tests. Now let me tell you how to take the tests. Before that, let me log in. Just a second. So we have the tests. Click on the physics tests. Now you can see there are different colors, the bubbles. Blue bubble says you have not taken the test. Green bubble says you have attempted the test, but you can, even if you have attempted, you can take it any number of times until or otherwise you are going to be thorough with your concepts and you're happy with your results. Until then, you can take the test. The red bubble says it is a random test, and the yellow bubble says it is now going to be the incomplete test, which you can have to complete. You can complete. So let me go to the moving charges. And go to the first test. Let me complete it. Let me do the test and take the test afresh. Click on take test. Understand, go to test. So question number 1. A particle is projected perpendicular to a uniform magnetic field. The area bounded by the trajectory of the particle is directly proportional to velocity, momentum, kinetic energy, none of these. All right. So it is given that area is directly proportional to, now you know area is directly proportional to r squared, pi r squared, right? So we can write it as A is directly proportional to r squared. Now what is R? R is now going to be mv by qb. R is mv by qb. You can quickly see in the NEET notes. There it is given as R is equal to mv by qb. Or from this you can infer that R is proportional to V, directly proportional to V. Therefore, A is directly proportional to V squared. So let's see which option is correct. A is proportional to V squared. Option C, that is V squared is nothing but the kinetic energy, right? So it is proportional to kinetic energy. Right. A current carrying wire PQ is placed perpendicular to another wire RS carrying a constant current. If the second wire is free to move, it will have, so one wire is along RS like this and another one is kept, so they are now kept perpendicular to each other. So at the point P and Q, the field due to RSS is different at P and Q. Okay, so there is now going to be both force and torque, which is now going to act. So PQ will have both type of motions. Since it is now going to have both torque and force, it will have two types of motions, both the types of motions. Let's see which option is correct. Both translational and rotational motion. Option B is correct. So click that. Go to the next. A square loop of side A carrying a current I1 is kept at a distance of A from an infinite wire carrying a current I2 as shown. The torque on the loop is 1. All right. Now you can see this is a square. Look at this. So the forces acting on the loop are all in the plane, and as a result of which there is no torque going to act here. Okay, there is no torque acting on it. So you can say it is 0. Save that. Go to the fourth one. A straight wire of length L carries a current I. The magnitude of magnetic field at the point P is what? So it is at a, you can see the point P there. Now let us quickly calculate this. You know, B vector is equal to mu 0 I by 4 pi L into sine of phi 1 plus sine. Now we can see that phi 1 is 0 and beta is, phi 2 is, so phi 1 is 0 and phi 2 is 45 degrees. All right. So you can see it is now going to be 45 degrees. So it is now going to be the resultant of these two. So it is now going to be 45 degrees. So which option can be correct? So option D can be correct. So because you know sine 45 is 1 by root 2. So just substitute in the formula and then you can see this now going to be root 2 mu 0 I by 8 pi L. Save that. Go to the next. The fifth question says, consider the following statements. Statement 1, the magnetic field interacts with a moving charge and not with a stationary charge. Statement 2 says, the moving charge produces a magnetic field. So, which can be the correct option? Now, this is a theoretical question. We'll quickly go through the concept. Like, stationary charges will not experience any induced electric field in a uniform magnetic field. You all know that. So, moving charges, only when the charges are moving, there is now going to be a there will be changes in the magnetic field, and there will be a magnetic interaction which is going to take place between the external magnetic field, and as a result of which there will be a field produced by the moving charge. So, it is now going to have an induced current or induced electric field, as a result of which there is now going to be a field produced by this moving charge. So you can say the magnetic field interacts with the moving charge and not with the, yes, that is a true statement. You all know that only a magnetic field will interact only with the moving charge and not with the stationary charge, and only a moving charge can produce a magnetic field. So both the statements are true. So option A is correct. Go to the next. Again, a concept related problem. Consider the following statement. A proton enters a strong magnetic field along the field direction. Its path and velocity remains the same. Statement 2 says the field exerts no force on the particle. Look at the statement, children. A proton enters a strong magnetic field along the field direction. Its path and velocity remains the same. Yes, a proton will always, and whenever it enters a strong magnetic field, its path and velocity is not going to change. It's not going to change. And also, the field exerts no force on the particle. Yes, so the field exerts no force on the particle. So you can say statement 2 is true and statement 1 is false, because a proton, see, we already saw that a charge particle, whenever is now going to be a moving charge particle, whatever it is, whether it is a proton or a neutron, electron, a charge particle, if it is now going to be in a magnetic field, it will undergo changes, right? So obviously it will change, its velocity and path will change. So statement 1 is false and statement 2 is true. So D is correct. Save that, go to the next. The 7th question, we'll have to see which option is correct is asking. Ampere's law states that flux through any closed interval is mu 0 times the current passing through the area bounded by the closed surface. Gauss's law for magnetic field is in magnetostatics serves the same purpose as Gauss's law for electric field in electrostatics. Yeah, sometimes they might ask you, even in your board exams, you can expect questions related to magnetic field where you might be asked to derive derivations using Gauss's law. So, you need not, it is Gauss's law is not only related for electrostatics, but also for charges. So wherever charges come into play, you can apply Gauss's law there. Okay. So Gauss's law for magnetic field states, the third statement says that Gauss's law for magnetic field states that flux of B through any closed surface is always zero, whether or not there are currents within the surface. Carefully read all the three statements, children. So Ampere's law, you know that it is for closed surface and it is also mu zero times. Yes, that is true. Gauss's law for magnetic field in magnetostatics serves the same purpose. Yes, that is also true, because as I told you, Gauss's law can be applied for magnetic, because that is also related to charges, right? So Gauss's law can be applied here also. And the third statement says Gauss's law for magnetic field states that the flux of B through any closed surface. So whatever statement is true for electrostatics is going to be true for Gauss's law, is true for magnetic field also. So all of the above is correct. So click that, go to the next. Now coming to the eighth one. In a region, steady and uniform electric and magnetic fields are present. These two fields are parallel to each other. A charged particle is released from rest in this region. Then the particle, path of the particle will be helix, straight line, ellipse, or circle. All right. This is, even though it seems to be a conceptual or theoretical question, let us quickly go through the concepts. Now, you know, E and B are now going to be along the x-axis. When a charged particle, you know, they are mutually perpendicular also. So when a charged particle is released from rest, it will experience an electric force. Okay? It is now going to experience an electric force. So initially, what happens is, along the direction of the electric field, depending on the nature of the charge, whether it is going to be a positive or negative charge, due to this force, what happens is it will acquire some velocity along the x-axis, because both electric field and magnetic field are now going to be along the x-axis. It is now going to acquire some velocity along the x-axis. But what happens is, due to the motion of the charge, the magnetic force cannot have a non-zero value, because the angle between B and B, either it will be 0 or 180 degrees. You know that. So only electric force is acting on the particle, and hence it will move along a straight line. Okay, obviously it is now going to move along a straight line. So he says the steady, uniform, and magnetic fields are present, and they are parallel to each other. That means both are now acting on the same line, on the same axis. So in that case, it is now going to be a straight line. Question number 9. A uniform electric field and a uniform magnetic field are acting along the same direction in a certain region. If an electron is projected along the direction of the fields with a certain velocity, then what happens? Its velocity will decrease, velocity will increase, it will turn towards the right of the direction of motion, it will turn towards the left of the direction of motion. All right. Now, E is the electric field, B is the velocity, and B is the magnetic field. So he says, B is the potential here. Okay, B is the potential. E, B, and B are all on the same direction. Okay, potential E and B all are now going to be in the same direction. See, electric field and a uniform magnetic field all lying on the same region. Okay, then the magnitude of force experienced by the electron is 0. Okay, while the electric force is acting opposite to the velocity of the electron, then the velocity of the electron will decrease. Obviously, it will decrease. So the velocity will decrease. So option A is correct. Take that. Go to the next. If an electron and a proton having same momentums enter perpendicularly to a magnetic field, then curved path of electron and proton will be same. they will move undeflected. Curved path of electron is more curved than that of proton. Path of the proton is more curved. All right, children. Again, quickly let us go through the concept. Now he says the momentum is same for both the electron and proton, and masses of the electron, but even though the momentum is same, the masses are not same. You know, it is different for electron and proton. So they will attain different velocities. So the velocities are now going to be the same. And obviously they'll have different forces. They'll experience different forces. But the radius of the circular path, you know, it is dependent on the momentum. So both will be moving on the same trajectory. Okay. So the curved path of the electron and proton is now going to be because the circular path or the radius with the circular path is now going to be dependent on the momentum. That is why they are now going to be the same. Even though the masses are say different and the forces experienced by both are different, but it is now going to be the momentum which is now going to be dependent. So click on that. Going to the 11th one. A solenoid is 2.7 meters long, has a radius of 0.85 centimeters and has 600 turns. It carries a current I of 2.5 amperes. What is the magnitude of magnetic field B inside the solenoid and far from either end? So all the dimensions are given. You can see the length is 2.7, current is 2.5, radius is 0.85, and number of turns is 600. Let's quickly solve this. See, you're going to be thorough with the formula. It is now going to be pretty easy for you to, having known the data, you can just apply the formula and quickly solve it. Okay? So B is equal to mu 0 Ni. But we know N is equal to N by L, where N stands for the turn density. I told you N is the turn density here. So having known now capital N is given as 600. L is, sorry children, small n. Let me see, 1 second. Number of turns, yes, 600, yes. So we can take that as, yeah. N is equal to 600. Yeah. N is equal to 600. L is equal to 2.7 meters. So therefore, now you could know that N is equal to 600 divided by 2.7. Now you can quickly substitute here. B is equal to, you know, mu 0 is 4 pi into 10 to the power of minus 7 into N is now going to be 600 by 2.7 into I is 2.5. And calculate that, and this is approximately equal to 0.7 millitesla. Let's see which option is correct. 0.7 millitesla. Option B is correct. Yes. Click that. Go to the 12th one. Find the magnetic field at a point P in the figure below, where I is equal to 15 amperes and R is equal to 20 centimeters. All right, I is given as 15 amperes. Let's quickly solve this. Magnetic field at the center of the current loop with current I and radius R is given by B is equal to, B is equal to mu 0 I by 2R. But this is now going to be a half loop. Okay, you can see that it is half loop. So it is now going to be half of this. So I can put it as, sorry, it is now going to be half of mu 0 I by 2. Having known all the values, it's going to be pretty easy. So half into mu 0, you know, is nothing but 4 pi into 10 to the power of minus 7 into 15. I is given as 15 divided by 2 times R is 20. Quickly simplify this. You can find that B is approximately equal to 24 microtesla. 24 microtesla. Millitesla, I'm sorry, millitesla. So B option is correct. Save that. Going to the 13th one. A beam of electrons travel at 3 into 10 to the power of 6 meters per second through a uniform magnetic field of 4 into 10 to the power of minus 2 Tesla at right angles to the field as shown in the figure. How strong is the force acting on each electron? Now, look, children, force F on the beam is opposite to the force given by the right hand rule. So, due to the electrons, now we know electrons have negative charge. We know that the charge, we also know that the charge of the electron is 1.6. So, E is equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 90 coulombs. So, in this case, we have to reverse the sign. So since now we know F is acting on each electron, now it can be determined by the force F is equal to QVB sin theta. QVB sin theta, where theta is the angle between the charge velocity and the magnetic field. Now, since he says it is perpendicular, theta is now going to be 90, and sin 90 you all know is 1. Given theta is equal to 90 degrees, so sin theta is now going to be 1. So, you know all the other values. So, F is equal to Q is minus 1.6 in 10 to the power of minus 90 into V is 3 into 10 to the power of 6. And D is 4 into 10 to the power of minus 2. 4 into 10 to the power of minus 2. Having known all the values, now we can quickly simplify this. So that works out to be minus 1.9 into 10 to the power of minus, let's see which option is correct, 10 to the power of minus 14 Tesla, right? Yeah, 10 to the power of minus 14. So you can see that the force is so many newtons, 1.9 into the power of. So option A is correct. Click that. Go to the 14th one. Now we can see CD and AB are two conductors which are now kept in this position. A current carrying wire AB is placed near another long current carrying wire CD. If it is free to move, AB will have what is now going to be the what motion will it have? Okay, if it is free to move, then AB, if it is now going to be free to move, what type of motion will AB experience? This is the question asked. Now you can see that since the magnetic field due to the wire CD and the wire AB, they are not uniform. See, they have not said that it is uniform. See, this is having I1 and that is having I2. They are not uniform. So there is neither torque nor force on the wire, that is which is going to be uniform. That is, it will experience both the rotational and the translational motion. Okay? So it will have both rotational and translational motion. So option C is correct. Save that. Go to the last question. A current carrying square loop is placed near an infinitely long current carrying wire. The torque acting on the loop is what? Forces acting on the square limbs, see the limbs of the square, is due to this current I1. Okay, what are the force which is now going to be acting on the limbs of the square? That is now going to be due to the current I1. Okay, so therefore, obviously you can see again they are not equal, they are not uniform. So there is no net torque which is now going to be resulting. So you can put it as 0. So say that. So now we have completed all the questions. Now you can end the test. Go to the results. Yeah, it says 2 questions are incorrect. Let's see which went wrong. A proton enters a strong magnetic field along the field direction. Its path and velocity remains the same. The field exerts no force on the particle. He says both the statements are true. Statement 2 is a correct explanation of statement 1. So he says that. So a proton which enters a strong magnetic field along a field direction. So obviously, since it is a charged particle, it should have a velocity. So the path and velocity remains the same. And let's see the explanation. So explanation is in the answer, he says. So we said that statement 2 is true and statement 1 is false. So the field exerts no force on the particle. All right. Go to the next question. Question 12 went wrong. Let's see that. So find the magnetic field, the point B in the, oh yeah, I calculated as mu Tesla, micro Tesla, and see, that is how you'll get confused, children. See, we calculated, while calculating, we did it as mu Tesla, micro Tesla, but milli Tesla is also given. So you shouldn't be in a hurry. You'll get confused. So be careful while selecting the option. See, I went wrong here. Even though our calculations was correct, we calculated it as mu Tesla, that is micro Tesla, but we selected the option wrongly. So this is how you'll be carried out, children, carried away. Be careful while selecting the options. See, it is micro Tesla. We did it correctly, but we selected the options wrong. So this is how you have to be very careful in your exams. So make yourself thorough with the concepts again and again. Use the NEET revision tests given by Classics. We have concise the whole thing. The whole essence of the lessons are being given. So go chapter wise. Do take as many times. You can take the chapter wise test as many times until you are thorough with the concepts, and then finally you can take the NEET for all the physics, chemistry, and biology. You can take any number of times. You've got one whole year. And the children who are now going to appear now, you can take it on a hourly base. So the time you can manage the time. So time management is very, very important in these NEET exams. So be careful and don't be tensed. Don't get panic while selecting the options like how we did today. Never look into the. Always choose the correct options, even though you would have done your calculations correctly, but while selecting, the units might be different. So look into the correct units and then click the options. So these are the mistakes which you tend to do. So be careful while attending the tests. So tomorrow I'll be going with magnetism and matter. So do you have any questions to ask, children?